Well, that's a good segue into starting. Tell me about how you went from social work into this.
Yeah. So, I'm originally from Ottawa and I moved here when I was 21. So like almost 8, 9 years ago at this time. I work primarily in Toronto Pride neighborhoods, working with marginalized young people in court diversion programming and like specifically youth violence. So specifically in Toronto, it tends to be like youth and gangs and stuff like that. And I really saw a lot of systematic issues that I wanted to be more impactful, but because I was just a frontline worker, I found it challenging to actually get people to listen to me and take me more seriously. So I went back to school where I did non-for-profit managing as a degree in governance law and management. And then after I was done, I was just applying for jobs. And Amanda, who is our director of operations, thinks this is so funny, but I came across Watershed as a company and I was like, oh, community manager sounds great. So I applied and like in some weird way, they were like, yeah, like let's interview her.
So you really didn't know that.
Yeah, like I looked up their videos and I looked at their website and I was like, they look like they're doing really cool things. But truthfully, I'd never really been introduced to the concept of co-working until I kind of found the world of Watershed and was interviewing with them. And so part of my interview prep was actually going to tons of co-working spaces, getting myself familiar with the idea of it. And then I had my interviews with Amanda and I just really felt like there was a really great mix. And obviously one of her questions to me was like, you know, how do you feel about leaving non-for-profit life in the community and kind of going into this like for-profit world? And I basically just told her it was something that I don't think I would ever be able to do, but because Watershed really does, in my personal opinion, as a person and not just like an employee here, has a really good like they want to do good and create good impact in the world rather than just like, in my opinion, as like, you know, a social worker where we see all these other corporate businesses and we're like, oh, they're so greedy and they're so this and that. They really do want to have this like social responsibility with them. And so I felt really great about making this transition into this role here.
That is a cool story. That's
yeah. So it's super random.
Kind of fell into it.
Yeah. And it's been like and it's funny because being a community manager, like with adults and businesses, I find there's so many transferable skills from what I was doing in the community to what I'm doing right now. And it is like a really fun, small world that ends up happening. And now that we're trying to look for new ways of working.
I might have to interview you separately just on that topic.
Sure. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is come down and see your location. And maybe at that point we can talk a little bit about that. I think that's fascinating. Sure. The crossover between, you know, social work and your skills in that realm and how you can apply them into what you're doing now. That's fascinating. Yeah. I like that. Thanks for that article idea. Okay. So can you give me a brief overview of the Watershed? When was it started? Who owns it? How many locations are there? Because I know there are multiple.
Yeah, of course. So the Watershed began as a co-working space in Victoria in 2014. Since then, we've expanded into Toronto, which is our second location and only other location at this time. We opened last year in August. We did like kind of a soft opening in August of 2018. And basically what I feel like we've been trying to do as a community manager and like as a team here is we've kind of wanted to have this like slow, intentional ramp up where we're very, we want to build like a very impactful and purposeful community here. I know a lot of community, like as co-working is growing as a business and opportunity, people are sometimes more interested in like filling seats, where I think where we're a bit different is like, we want to build a community that we're really proud of and people are proud to be a part of. So, you know, we didn't have like every seat filled the second we opened the doors. We've been very intentional in who we want to have in here and having them work well with the already existing people we have in here as well.
Sorry about that. There we go. I just had a call come in on my phone that interrupted you. Let me put my phone on do not disturb.
I know. I was like doing that before. I'm like, okay, block everything. Like the 600 different messaging systems I have. I'm like, stop.
We forget these things. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I thought there were more than the 2 locations, and and I didn't know that you just opened in August. I thought it had been open longer than that. So that's really interesting. You're not even a year old in Toronto. So when did you start? Like right at the outset?
Yeah, so I started, like you mean in my position, like when did I
Mm-hmm.
start here? Yeah, for sure. So I started in June of 2018. So like I'm not even a full year into the cycle as well. And I was here when they were still actually under construction. Part of what I did when I first came on was, you know, helping to put together desks and like building IKEA furniture, which I think was like kind of cool because like like me and Diane, who you met earlier, have been here since like there was nothing, which was
That is
really cool to
cool.
see this
That is
whole
very
place transform. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. We're the OGs of the community right now.
So, where exactly is it located, and what did you, do you know what factors were taken into consideration? Because location, obviously, in this circumstance, is huge.
Yeah. So for us, I think that the biggest thing I think for a lot of co-working, but I know for us was a driving factor was we wanted to be situated in like a convenient location in the financial district.
Okay.
And I'm sure we're going to get into it later on, but I think because of the demographic that we are trying to attract here, it just seemed this was like the best location. We're, you know, located next to Osgood subway station, right across the street from Nathan Phillips Square. We have an uninterrupted view of, you know, Bay Street, Nathan Phillips. We're attached to the PATH system, which is a huge selling point for Torontarians during the winter because there's people who don't even leave and ever see daylight outside their windows. So I know that was like definitely a driving factor, and what our coworkers are really excited about is the fact that we're, you know, and also too, I think the fact that they can say, you know, we're in the Thompson building, we're at 65 Queen West is, you know, it's a very professional, and this building's really well recognized in Toronto as well. So
Yeah,
I think all those factors were really important.
Yeah, no, that's a great location. It's an
Yeah.
excellent location. I don't know how they stumbled across it, but it's got everything going for it, doesn't it?
Very, very, very fortunate. Very like, and we do like, there is like, I'm not sure, like, I'm sure you're very well aware of this, but there's so much competition in Toronto that we're so fortunate that this is like sort of where we're kind of like tucked away in the financial district. And when people figure out that like, oh, there's a co-working space in there, it's just like, to me, it's nothing I've seen so far. It's beautiful here.
So when you talk about, and that'll lead us into the next thing, when you talk about competition, I'm going off script now. Tell me what you are experiencing in that realm, and is that a concern, and how are you addressing it? Obviously, you said your location is something that sets you apart, but tell me about the competition in the area.
Yeah. So I think something that was said to me that I found was like it really resonated well with me was, for example, like there's a couple of WeWork locations around here and sort of more of like the giant co-working space entities. And something that was really, I think says it really well was we were at the Juicy convention, which is like a co-working convention that happens in Canada. And they were saying WeWork has done a phenomenal job at putting co-working on the radar and making it a conversation and making it aware to like a really broad population. Where I think we're different is we still really foster the initial intention with co-working, which is the community. We want people to come here and feel a part of something. We want them to feel like they're creating impact, not just with their businesses, but in the community, in both the co-working space, but in the larger community in Toronto as well. So I think that that's something, especially me as a as a community manager, I really try to make that like a priority when people are coming into our places. I want to know that you're going to be more than just sitting at a desk. I want to know that you're going to engage in things. I think what also sets us apart is that we have our event space. So the partners, Watershed Partners, works out of the event space. So we're very fortunate that we have this beautiful blank canvas that if a coworker ever wants to run like a little, conference or wants to run some sort of like social event or networking event, we have the capability in our space to actually do that, which is great. And I think that that's like a huge separation for us in terms of the competition that are around us, because space is very expensive in Toronto. So to have an entire floor is usually quite challenging. And so we're just very fortunate that we have that here as an add-on with us.
I can't wait to come and see it now.
You're going to love it. Yeah, no, it's amazing. I always challenge people because we actually are like old city halls right there. And we're actually rated at eye level of the gargoyles.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so it's really cool. Like it's just things that even though I've been here for long. Like, I didn't know there was gargoyles up there. It's just, you're going to love it. It's
Yeah. I mean, that atmosphere makes a difference, doesn't it? It's just not
totally.
just a box in a space. It's,
Absolutely.
that atmosphere makes a difference.
Absolutely.
So it's privately owned, right?
Yes. So we're owned by Watershed Partners, and they're a strategy design company.
Okay.
And so basically what they do is they help like any type of human-made system. So typically like companies or organizations to improve themselves. They use like models, methodologies, and philosophies to do that. And they just felt that having a co-working space within that practice allowed them to kind of reach more industries and more people, and also share their knowledge and tools. And then I think what's been cool is there's been like this nice like cross-pollination that happens between both of them, where it's like, it wouldn't be uncommon to see, the partners chatting with coworkers, and like, the coworkers are kind of teaching the partners new things about what they're doing. And then the partners are kind of lending their expertise to the community members as well, which I think again is like a huge difference between us and the other co-working spaces. Is like, sometimes like these types of practices can cost, a lot of money. And it wouldn't be necessarily feasible for a startup company. And so the fact that we have them kind of like, making their coffee here, and like they're just right there for them to just like strike up a conversation, I think is such a great add-on that we have, that we can offer to our community. And then also they also get a benefit from that as well too.
Of course. I think that's amazing. The synergy between the Watershed Partners to be able to, like you said, you're making coffee. It's like, hey, so what do you do? And
absolutely,
you start talking about what you do, and you just, through those casual conversations, they might be able to provide some insight or expertise. But conversely, the partners are probably learning about things that they weren't aware of, or
absolutely.
I think it's amazing. That's excellent.
Yeah. And I think what's really cool with us too is like, the one thing that I've really appreciated about Watershed as a whole is that there's a lot of like kitchen table conversations that happen, where it's like people are genuinely wanting to talk about issues in the community, or like, help each other out. And I think that for me has been like coming from, again, where I came from, I never really kind of like saw the corporate world as being so like curious and interested in that. And like, that's been really, for me, it's been really warming and nice to see that cross-pollination and synergy, like you said, happening with all the people that are here.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a different environment, isn't it? You don't have, like, you have so many diverse interests or ideas in a room.
Totally.
It's, you're not dealing in a corporation that is all targeted toward the same sort
absolutely
of end goal, and that I think it gets people thinking, and I think it creates, I guess, more camaraderie, where
absolutely
where you're trying to find out what other people are doing and help them, and just a genuine interest in what's going on, right?
Absolutely.
And so you told me about some of the unique selling points, if shouldn't call them selling points, but things that are attractive to someone who's potentially looking for a co-working space. Tell me about the space itself, and the design of the space, and what helps create a comfortable environment. And like, I don't know, since August, maybe you've received feedback from people, maybe you've changed some things. Like, tell me what that experience has been like.
Yeah. So I would say that I think one of the biggest things with Watershed, in my experience from being here, is like, they've paid attention to the details that matter, that sometimes people will, and I think people who have other co-working spaces overlook. So I would say, like, this is going to sound funny. Like, I'm an Instagram person. I love being able to go to locations and like take pictures, right? Like, I want to be able to be like, oh, like, look at me behind like a brick wall and like with a neon sign. And I find a lot of co-working spaces are going towards more of those trendy looks. Where what I find with this location and Watershed in particular is that we have that like very clean and like nice aesthetic that you want to take those pictures, but it's like very intentional. Like, our chairs are super practical, really comfy. They don't look super cute and like, oh, like you just want to like hang out here and take photos, but they're like, you could sit in them and get your work done for hours. And I think that there was a lot of attention to detail on that level that really sets us apart from other, co-working spaces. Our, furniture is like well made. It's not going to break within like 3 weeks, or because that's the other thing, is like, being in a co-working space, your stuff gets used a lot and heavily. And all of our stuff is still, you know, looking great. It's feeling great. People are really happy with it. We recently, when you come in, you can definitely check it out. But we also added, we're very fortunate. We were gifted some artwork in our space as well. So we have a lot of original Morrissey's in here, which are like stunningly beautiful. And most of our, like all of our walls are white. And so just having these like beautiful First Nations, Indigenous artwork up on our walls with that color is just so impactful. And we get a lot of compliments on that as well, because obviously, you know, it's like beautiful stuff. And you'll definitely get a chance to look at it as we go along. So we've tried to keep our aesthetic, that being said, like clean, so people are not feeling distracted. It provides a space where they can get their stuff done, and just really promotes the idea of like success and ambition with people.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great.
Sorry.
That's okay. So what skills do you think make a successful community manager?
I think, not to, well, I guess, okay. So I think for me, what makes an important community manager is like, not only do you need to have like good skills like organization, you know, member retention, business development. I think, you know, in this day and age where people are really looking for more human connection because people are feeling so isolated and mental health is on the forefront of a lot of people's minds, is I think having skills such as mine that I come from with social work are like incredibly, being able to be, you know, adaptable, creating genuine connections with, you know, not only myself, but like community members, active listening skills, and also kind of like resources and knowledge on how to help people who might also be experiencing, you know, mental health crisis, or, you know, might need some support in other aspects. I think that, you know, it's great to have this business background, but I think it's also really important to try and foster healthy, safe environments for these people to feel wanted and connected to the community. A lot of people who come in to see us, you know, have been jumping around from like their house to like a coffee shop. And so I think being able to create like a different, inclusive environment is so important.
Yeah.
You know, and like 90% of people are like, it was fun, but like, I miss being around people.
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
And like, I think that that's nice to hear, because again, it's like, we're all on our phones now, we're on laptops, we're not getting as much opportunity to connect with one another as we were. And so I think as a community manager, being able to see and just also maybe sense like if someone needs that connection but doesn't know how to reach out, or, you know, needs, you know, just wants to have a chat, like being like, you know what, my, you know, report can wait 5 more minutes so that this person can like have a conversation with me. I think that having that ability is like really important.
That's interesting. That's and of course, you know, I just wrote an article about, and it's, you know, pretty common topic these days. Actually, there was something on TV yesterday. They were talking about loneliness, and specifically about, and I just wrote an article about how to combat loneliness and isolation, because we know it's the number one. There's so many benefits to working remotely, but there are, you know, like any situation, nothing's perfect, and and the biggest drawback is isolation and loneliness.
Yeah.
And how to combat that. And so for sure, like I would think that being in a, you know, the co-working space addresses that to some degree, but it's also, I think, important for the community manager to facilitate that. It's one thing.
Absolutely.
Maybe you come into a co-working space and maybe you're not particularly outgoing, or maybe you're an introvert, and maybe, as you said, as a community manager, recognizing that, but then you've got the added benefit of having social work skills. Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe they need to redefine the job description for a community manager for all co-working spaces, because I think that would be incredibly invaluable. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I would say like 100%, like you just nailed it, is like, I think my experience through seeing other community managers and going to other co-working spaces is like, that hasn't been like a forefront in like job descriptions. And I don't think, if I'm being honest with you, and I could be wrong, but I don't think initially like that was something even Watershed was looking at. But then because I like, it's so not even something I would normally apply to, but it kind of like create this new opportunity where I think we kind of realize like skill set is an important thing, like you said, in this role, because I wouldn't expect someone who doesn't know and come from this, like my world, to maybe be able to identify when someone's feeling lonely or might need a chat, or like, you know, a bubbly hello in the morning. And I know from my work, like how impactful those small little things can be. Again, like those small attention to details are so important when you're a community manager and you're building a community like this, because that's how people like want to get up in the morning and do great things and like inclusive and like wanted, or like what any human being wants to feel. And I think that that's what the utmost important part of my job is, creating that environment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
For them.
And so what are some of the other things that you do or offer to facilitate that? So, and I'm talking about events or, some of the activities that you might organize. What are some of the things that you have come up with?
Yeah. So I think that we're pretty like common with in terms of like our community programming. So we offer everything from like self-care programming, like yoga, meditation. We have a crystal light therapy person who comes in and does, chakra aligning and all that kind of great stuff. RMTs, we do that as well, like registered masseuse. But then we also have like our fun things. Like we do, socials, we do community breakfasts, community salad, just opportunities for people to gather around a kitchen and talk, because we all know that's like how people love to talk. And then we do some other things too, like we're trying to launch a bit more like business development opportunities. So where people can either, in a space and in the community can come together and network, or maybe learn a new skill. So something I know we're trying to launch now is, and they're already doing in Victoria, is like packed lunches where, you have a topic, and it's either you're learning a new skill or you're learning about, something going on in the community. And then, we collaborate, figure out if there's a way that we can even brainstorm to like fix this issue, pulling all our resources together. So that's the kind of programming that we offer here, like on a consistent monthly basis. And then, we'll throw in like an odds and end thing, like in January, doing like a health fitness thing and, trying to like promote those little things. But consistently, I'd say that that's what we're offering here.
That's great. Maybe you and I'll have to speak again aside, because I was speaking with Fiverr. You're familiar with Fiverr, obviously.
Yes.
And they contacted me. They were talking, they want to do some sessions in Toronto, because they do. Yeah. And so they were asking me if I would be interested in doing some sessions, and they were talking about finding, like they host these things, I guess, all over. The person I was talking to was from New York, and they do them exclusively in co-working spaces. So maybe we can talk about doing something, and we can have a separate discussion on that too.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
All kinds of material here.
I know, we're so much going on here.
So in terms of marketing the Watershed, what works best for you? What is your marketing plan, and what works best for you?
Yeah, so I know you've spoken to Natasha as well. Like we were kind of emailing back and forth between the two of us. Natasha is like the go-to for communications with us. So she would be probably really great to answer this question. But from what I know, what we're doing is social media is obviously a big thing. Like we have our Instagram and Facebook account, and we try to keep that updated as much as possible, because we find like real time, like real stories are like what people are most interested in. And I know that we also have like, little pieces in like the Globe and Mail and things like that to kind of promote more maybe the space and advisory at times. And then I think what has worked well for us, and what I'm really seeing outside of like social media, is like, I don't know that they like this reference that I have, but I find we're kind of like a speakeasy where we're kind of unknown, like to like the larger public in terms of like, WeWorks or whatever. But we're kind of like this like hidden gem that people are now discovering. And it's almost like a referral basis, which has kind of created this like curiosity around us, which I think has worked really well to our benefit. Like I said, we're like this hidden gem in the Thompson building with this like wicked, beautiful space that people are like referring other businesses or their friends to. And that's where like a lot of our people are coming from, which I think has been really surprisingly working well. Like the old school, word of mouth has been great with us. And I think our social media helped drive that, because people like, we had the Handmaid's Tale filming outside and everyone was watching it. So everyone's posting about it. Or the Leafs game, we're practicing on the ice at Nathan Phillips Square. Everyone's posting about it. So people are now like, oh, like what's this place? Like it's been great for us.
I saw the Leafs game one.
yeah, totally.
Very cool. So what's your capacity?
So we can have up to, this is a great, interesting question. So in terms of co-working, we can do up to about 67 people. So we have 6 private offices and then 37 dedicated desks, and then 19 hot desks. So that number can fluctuate just because of the offices. And then obviously, like if we're hosting an event here, the number jumps way up. Sure. It can be, you know, I think 120 comfortably, we could easily fit in the space. But yeah, 67 is about what our capacity is.
And what's your, so you have memberships, but you also have the ability to have people just drop in, correct?
Yes, we do. So we do like two different things. Like you can either like, so for example, if we have a group who like refers a friend, I'm just the type of person, I'm like, come check it out. Like I want you to feel comfortable and like coming in here without like spending money, because I'm so sure you'll like it, that like come enjoy a day on us. And then if you like it, then we can talk about it then. But I think it's great to allow people the experience, just experience without pressure. And
do you promote that?
I think so. Yeah. Like I genuinely tell people that you can jump in for a day and see.
Yeah, you know, I think that's great.
Yeah, great. Because like there is, I think the thing too is like there's so much different niche markets and different co-working markets in Toronto that like I'm like, if you want to go check out someone else, please, by all means do. Like, I want you, if you're coming here, I want to know that you want to be here, because that's what retains a member, opposed to being like, oh, we're going to lock you in for 6 months on your first day here. Like, I want people to feel good and comfortable about being here.
Loyal customers, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's worked in our favor. So I'm just going with it.
So you have members from day one, right? You've had members? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I think right now we actually just had about 20 people move in today.
Wow.
Yeah. So March is a great month for us. And I think right now we're about 32 members in here. So we're about halfway there. Yeah.
And so again, when I come down to visit, what I would like to do is maybe you can see if you can find some of those members who would be willing to be interviewed.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be great.
We have like ambassadors who like just promote us like crazy. And so we actually have some, I guess, like neighbors from upstairs who like, they promote us to their friends. So like we have this one guy who's always like, hey, I have a friend who's at TechTO. Like he wants to check out your space, and he doesn't even have any affiliation with Watershed. He just loves our space. So it's great.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. But absolutely I could do that.
So what is if you were speaking to someone who is considering opening a co-working space, and they're popping, like I'm out in Orangeville right now, which is
Orangeville, small town. Beautiful. Yeah,
it is beautiful. And a few months ago, I saw on Instagram, I'm pretty sure, because I'm always scouring, looking for new places. I was sure I saw a new co-working space open up in Orangeville. And Orangeville is fairly small.
Yeah.
I messaged them on Instagram, but they did not get back to me, and I haven't seen any activity since. So anyway, I need to track that down. But what I've seen since is this movement towards reviving smaller communities, so that people don't have to commute. So what advice would you give to someone who is looking at opening up a co-working space and making the most out of that experience?
Yeah. So I think, and this might touch on another question you might have later on, but I think for me, and I know I've already touched on it as well, is I think attention to the detail is what's important. I think that it can be very quick and easy to get lost in, I just need to fill seats and I want this place to look cool and trendy. I think what's important is like really, just like I would do in the community, is like listen to what your community is telling you, and also really think, if I were a coworker, what would I want to see here? Like, what is going to be most practical in making me productive during my day? So again, like spending money on good chairs is a big deal. Don't just buy these cool trendy chairs because they look cool in a photo. Buy chairs that your community are going to want to sit in for 6, 8, 10 hours a day. I think that's really important. I think another piece is like hospitality. Like it's huge. And I think again, at this conference we were at with Juicy, it was a topic of conversation from this woman in Texas who, they're hospitable to the T. And it was really fascinating because I never really thought about how these two things are kind of the same. But I think also like investing in hospitality for your coworkers is huge. Like, I think how you present yourself, how each day when a coworker walks in, if there's like a clean space, spa water out, some fruits and vegetables cut, there's not a mess, counters are clean. all those things are really important, but it's easy when a place gets busy and when you have your own work to overlook those things, or you're trying to fill seats, you overlook it. I think all those things are really important. And I would recommend to any person who's interested in owning a co-working space is like, don't overlook the details. They are important. And don't just do things based on trend, do it on practicality.
What are your hours, by the way?
So our hours, like if you're just dropping in 9 to 5, if you are a member here, it's 24/7.
Okay. So members have a key and they can just have like, it's not staffed 24/7, is it?
No. So I'm here usually 8 to 4. And then Diane, who you met earlier, will do like a 9 to 5. Some of the partners will be here a little bit later during the day. But all of our coworkers have, fobs to get into the building, get upstairs, get into the space. And then we're here for the business hours.
So question for you. Have you ever considered implementing nap rooms?
That's a great question. It's so funny.
That popped into my head because I love naps.
Trust me. I'm with you. I swear I was a cat in another lifetime. Like I swear.
I think they are highly underrated. And
I completely agree.
There are many days where I go, good God, I could just lie down for like 20 minutes, just 20 minutes. And I'd feel so much better. So, I used to jokingly say, I think businesses should implement a nap room, like a pods or whatever.
Yeah. I would so co-sign that. I would be all over that as well. Cause and also too, just from a practical standpoint, like I feel like I'm genuinely someone, and I know I'm not the only one, but I have a hard time sleeping for my 8 hours of sleep every night. I actually work better and more productively when I have breaks and I'm able to take like a quick 20-minute power nap. It's just the way I'm built. We currently do not have the option for, like sleep rooms or pod rooms right now. I don't know what the future holds. I know long-term, from my understanding is Watershed, like this is like a testing place. Like we want to expand into a larger environment. That's what our plan is. We want this place. And so it would definitely be something that would be brought up is like, hey, like I think, one of the coworkers asked hammock room, like they want to have hammocks set up. I was like, I don't know about hammocks, but certainly like pods, like I definitely see the value in them. And I think in a larger space, maybe we would totally consider it. We just don't have, like our space isn't that big to be able to also, because we have the event space. We kind of took the event space, I'm sure, over like some other programming room, but right now we don't have.
I think that would go over like gangbusters. I think it would be,
it'd be amazing.
If I read that a co-working space had nap rooms, that would be the tipping point for me.
Absolutely. And it has been something that has been asked of our coworkers. And just like I said, at this time, we just don't have the capacity to be able to put them in, but I'm sure it would be something I would vocalize if we were to move out and outgrow this space. I would say, there would be, I think, some added value in having like 1 or 2 pod rooms set up.
For sure. So last question, what are some of the trends that you see in co-working? I'm reading all kinds of things about co-working changing. WeWork, I guess, just announced some change to their, structure or their, how they're perceived. So what do you see happening here?
Yeah. So I find WeWork such like a fascinating, referral point, because that's who we all refer to. And I think it's like fascinating that now they're trying to create this like, where we live or whatever, where like you can rent an apartment and with WeWork now. And like, I remember watching a video of like someone who was doing that, and you could tell his wife was like not having it. Like she was just like, he's like, we'll live here forever. And she's like, no, that's a discussion. What I would say I find in Toronto has been a trend is I've found that recently, I think because there's so many co-working spaces, is that I'm finding a lot more niche market co-working spaces. And so what I mean by that is like, for example, we kind of cater to people who fall within like our values. What I'm seeing more of is, co-working spaces that are popping up for like artists or fashion designers or photographers, which I think is like really cool, because we do get people who come in here and are like, oh, I'm a chef. Do you have a kitchen? And I'm like, we don't have an industrial kitchen. But now you're starting to see more of those like niche marketed co-working spaces, which is great. Because that tells me, one, like people who maybe worked in restaurants and are great with chefs and, that kind of stuff are now looking at building their own restaurants but we just don't have the capacity here to obviously have like a full convection oven and all those things. So I think that's something I've really been seeing a huge incline with Toronto, is like a lot more niche marketed co-working spaces.
That's interesting. Yeah. And sorry, I said that was the last question, but I lied. Tell me just quickly, what would it, and there's probably no such thing as typical, but what would an average day look like for you?
Oh yeah. Okay. I would say like, I definitely have like a routine that I try to like do every day. So for me, like, doing the basic things like cleaning, because we all know, just like, youth working, you have to remind people to put dishes in the dishwasher and things like that.
Amazing,
so kind of, yeah, I know, that's why I'm saying those transferable skills are great here. But I definitely would say like, doing main type of things, making sure, our bathrooms are stocked and all that kind of stuff. But I think a big part of my day, I also try to spend just connecting with our coworkers and having really genuine conversations, because what I've found is through those conversations, I'm actually able to connect other coworkers with other coworkers who I think would pair really nicely together. So someone who I'd love to connect you with is, she's a young entrepreneur. She's only 22 years old. She's doing amazing things. And with her connector with mentors here who can really help foster her. And I don't think that would have been able to have been done if like my goal is just to clean up after people and like write my reports. Like I need to be able to be in a community. And so I spend a lot of my time just doing that. Anything with the coworkers, that's where like my day kind of gets like really sporadic, is, coworkers have things like pop up every, I need booking on this room, or like, hey, do you have an extra this? So like running around and doing those types of things is definitely that's hard to quantify sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's typically what my day looks like, is just interacting with the community and making sure the community is running really well and smoothly and people are happy.
And so who's responsible for planning the different functions and events and activities?
So in terms of community programming, that's all me. So I've built relationships with, different people in the community who, we just like clockwork. Every month they'll come in. If we're talking more like external events, it's a whole team of us. So we have, a business development lead individual named Quinn who works here. He does a lot of that kind of stuff, like reaching out to different companies in the community to run like, different events here. Or it could be something simple as like, we have a community partnership with the Canadian Film Center. They run their demos here. So like, it's kind of like a hodgepodge of like our small team, but then also like community members who want to run events here as well. So different people. And that also, like when we have events going on that are like what we call external events. So like community events or, co-working events, that can eat up a lot of my time. Not in a negative way, but it just does, because
planning,
so much logistics that go around it. And you also want it to be a good experience for the people who are coming in. So a lot of work goes into those events as well. So when we do have them, that definitely chews up
Great. Well, that's excellent.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you. So this was not nearly as painful, right?
No, it was totally fine.
And I feel honored that I was your first interview. But thank you for the time. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
And what I'd like to do is reach out to you in an email when, and hopefully come out next week if that works.
Right. Yeah. That's
fine. I would like to come and take some pictures. You probably have your own, obviously, pictures for promotional purposes that maybe you can send me, but I'd like to take some as well.
Of course.
Possibly some video, and definitely want to interview one or two of your co-working members, both to talk about your space, but I also want to interview them to talk about, their, from a remote worker standpoint.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. That'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you. And
pleasure to meet you too.
I'll be in touch. I will, when I write the article, I will make sure you get a look at it to make sure I've covered everything accurately. One of the reasons I record things is it's much easier than having to take notes. And
completely.
All right. Thanks, Shannon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sheila.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Okay. Bye.